Hello everyone, LaFinchy here. In this video, we will explore a timeline where the Serbian Empire conquers and becomes the Roman Empire. This is a remake of a map I did back in November 2023 around the Serbian Empire where Emperor Dušan didn't die. In our timeline, the Serbian Empire was arguably the most powerful Balkan polity of the 14th century. Under the leadership of mainly Stefan Dušan, he was able to conquer Albania, Macedonia, and much of Greece, with Dušan having had ambitions of conquering Constantinople itself, and leading a crusade against the Muslim Turks. However, he died when he was around 46 from an unknown illness, likely malaria, with the empire shortly collapsing due to the weak leadership of Uroš V. This would ultimately pave the way for the Battle of Kosovo and conquests of Serbia by the Ottomans. In this timeline, Dušan manages to remain healthy for most of his life, only dying at 71 in 1379 from old age, and allowing him more time to realize his ambitions. This would first manifest in an invasion of the Byzantine Empire. Since the sacking of Constantinople in 1204, the Roman Empire was in an extremely shaky position, with the Empire of Nicaea and the reformed Roman Empire under the Palaiologos having to challenge pretenders to the throne in civil wars, and Catholic nobles that had carved up large parts of Greece, as well as dealing with the emerging Turkish nations of Anatolia. Serbia managed to expand into Greece by exploiting the instability of the Byzantine realm from the 13th century. With little stopping Dušan, who would likely conquer the Thracian holdings of House Palaiologos, sieging Salonica and Adrianople, and encroaching on Constantinople itself. Although the Roman Empire is still severely unstable, the defenses of the city of Constantinople itself would still present a hardy challenge for Dušan's army. If he fails to take over the city, the Tsar would likely circumvent the city through Gallipoli, taking over Byzantine strongholds in Anatolia like Chalcedon and Nicomedia. The Ottoman Beylik was still a new and upcoming power within the region, likely taking advantage of Serbia's invasion of the Byzantines. There is a good chance of the Serbian Empire defeating Orhan I and annexing the Ottoman lands as a major foothold into Anatolia. Assuming this happens, this would change the course of Serbian history into unrecognizable territory. Either way, Constantinople is likely to fall by the mid-1360s. With the House of Palaiologos basically out of the picture, Stefan Dušan will likely take up the title of Roman Emperor, forming a Greco-Serbian Roman Empire. His efforts to further centralize the Serbian Empire would be bolstered by access to the Byzantine bureaucracy, implementing Dušan's code with some revisions to balance Greek and Serbian interests. The rest of his reign would be marked by further conquests into Anatolia and Frankokratia of Greece. With Dušan's death, the fate of the Roman Empire would remain uncertain. With Dušan's longer lifespan, it is possible that his successor, Uroš V, could grow to be more competent in statesmanship. However, he would likely remain an ineffective and indecisive ruler that would spell trouble for the integrity of the Nemanjić dynasty. In our timeline, Uroš V's uncle, Simeon Uroš, challenged his rule by taking over the southern regions of Thessaly and Epirus. This largely unresolved conflict was a major factor in the decline of the Serbian Empire. In this timeline, however, Simeon Uroš would likely die before Dušan, leaving Uroš V's rule to be challenged by his cousin, Jovan Uroš. As Simeon's mother, Maria, was a member of House Palaiologos, Jovan could utilize his Palaiologan heritage to make his claim for emperorship appear more legitimate compared to Uroš V, allowing him to maintain a base of power in Constantinople. In this timeline, the Nemanjić dynasty would likely have a higher chance of success, with a civil war between Jovan, the Simeonici, and Uroš V, Dušanovići, with Jovan killing off Uroš V by the early 1390s. However, this wouldn't mean the empire would go out unharmed. The empire that Jovan Uroš would inherit would be massively diminished by revolts from the local Serbian nobility, along with Greek pretenders. The Frankokratia of Greece, Albanian lords, Hungary, Bulgaria, and Turkic Beys of Anatolia would all take advantage of the succession crisis to carve up the Nemanjić realm. This would spell trouble for Jovan, and the Serbo-Roman Empire could likely collapse at this point. If, however, Jovan proves to be a competent military leader, I could see many of the nobles folding back to his rule and him quickly beating back the Frankokratia and smaller Anatolian beyliks. In this map, I also depicted Wallachia as a Nemanjić-ruled state through the marriage of Jovan's son, Constantine, into the house of Draculeshti. This would give the Roman Empire a reliable Orthodox ally to contain the threat of Bulgaria as well as to keep Hungary at bay. With the Ottomans practically wiped from the map, Balkan history, and especially Serbia's history, would change forever. In Anatolia, Jovan would likely reconquer much of the lands lost during the Nemanjić Succession Crisis, mostly around the Aegean coast, carrying on his uncle's ambitions of launching a crusade across the Muslim Anatolian territories under the casus belli of reclaiming Anatolia for the Roman Empire. I could see the emergence of a Christian Turkish population as Rome reclaims more of Anatolia and seeks to reassert Greek cultural hegemony on the peninsula. With the Ottomans gone, the Karamanids, centered in Konya, would become the strongest Turkish beylik, expanding into other smaller beyliks and proclaiming itself as a successor to the Sultanate of Rum, becoming a prominent rival of the Roman Empire. Akkoyunlu, the Mamluk Sultanate, and the Timurids could also threaten Rome's hold on Anatolia. Going back to Greece proper, the French and Italian lords of the region would take advantage of the Nemanjić succession crisis to expand Latin rule on the peninsula. Without the meteoric rise of the Ottomans, I can see the rule of the Frankokratia lasting centuries longer, with the Serbo-Roman Empire eating away at the Latin-Greek realms over time. The Latin nobility, although relatively small, would allow for the French, Italian, and Catalan cultures to bleed into Greek language and culture. The amount of Catholic Greeks in Hellas could also increase significantly. The Albanian lords would be some of the first to secede during the Nemanjić succession crisis. Without the collapse of the Serbian Empire, it is likely that most of Albania would be reabsorbed into the Roman Empire. The possibility of Albania uniting to fend off Serbian influence is also quite likely. Either way, without the spread of Islam in the Balkans by the Ottomans, Albania would maintain its Orthodox majority under the shadow of the Serbian nation. Bulgaria would also take advantage of the instability of the Serbo-Roman Empire, with the Second Bulgarian Empire reasserting control over Macedonia, Moravian Serbia, Thrace, and even Thessaly and Epirus. Bulgaria could easily spell the end of the Nemanjić Empire in service of a Bulgarian-dominated Balkans. In this timeline, the Serbo-Roman Empire manages to avoid collapse and, through a secured alliance with Wallachia, contains the Tsardom around its core territories around Tarnovo. Bulgarian culture would be drastically different without centuries of Turkish domination and influence. In a bid to maintain some form of autonomy, some of the nobles in Western Serbia in this timeline have opted to join Stefan Dušan's Bosnian kingdom. This would likely provoke conflict with the Serbian Empire as they invade to reclaim Western Serbia. But the instability caused by the revolts in the Serbo-Roman Empire after Dušan's death would most certainly delay such an invasion. Like Albania, the Bosnian nation wouldn't convert to Islam, with the Kristjani church remaining dominant teetering at the intersection between the Catholic and Orthodox world. During the Protestant Reformation, Bosnia could see a reform movement emerge and convert a large part of the Bosnian population to Protestantism. Like in our timeline, Hungary would remain a looming threat of the Serbian nation. After Dušan's reign, Hungary could use the succession crisis as an opportunity to seize Belgrade, named Nándorfehérvár by the Hungarians. With the manpower and tax base of the Hellenic world at Serbia's disposal, Hungary would be more wary of expanding into the Balkans, maintaining a tenuous rivalry with the Roman Empire. Bosnia is likely to be caught in the crossfire of this rivalry as, if you live in between two countries that fight each other often, you're not going to have a good time. Without the Ottoman conquest of Serbia, the Vojvodina region would remain majority Hungarian with less Serbian migration, and thus, Vojvodina would probably remain under Hungarian rule. Culturally, Serbia would be vastly different from the Serbia we know today. Although some Turkish culture would make its way into Serbia proper through cultural exchange through Greece and Constantinople, Serbia's culture, especially its food and clothing, would share more in common with Central European nations such as the Germans, Hungarians, and Poles. The Serbian nobility would maintain their tradition of wearing Byzantine court dress, which would inform the fashion of both Serbian nobility and commoners for centuries to come. Since Serbia would control the Patriarchate of Constantinople, the Orthodox Church in Serbia proper would receive autocephaly at a later date. It is uncertain how Serbian history would progress beyond the Nemanjić Roman Empire. Serbian control over Rome likely wouldn't live to see the 16th century, with a different civil war or invasion putting another dynasty on the Byzantine throne, and severing Serbia and Greece. It is certain, however, that Serbian and Balkan history would change drastically, with Turkish conquest being more unlikely. Here is the final product.